Modelled on the Parthenon in Athens, Scotland's national monument might at first seem out of place in Edinburgh. However, by the early 18th century, Scotland could proudly claim to be the successor of Athens as a philosophical capital of the world, rivalled only by Paris as a centre of the European Enlightenment. However, I'm not sure that's a good enough reason for David Hume's statue on the Royal Mile to depict him as a classical statesman, even though he was the greatest philosopher the city, Britain, and arguably even the world has ever known. More questionable still is his highly polished right toe. It has become a tradition for visitors to rub the toe in the belief that it brings scholars especially good luck. The irony is rich. Hume railed against all superstition which, along with enthusiasm, or zealotry, he thought was the chief vice of religion. But he would probably have been more amused than enraged by this. Hume was a deeply humane philosopher, one who was tolerant of human weakness and sceptical of the grand claims made by more optimistic philosophers that perfect knowledge was within our grasp. Perhaps ironically, it is for one of his own imperfections that Hume has come under recent attack, a risible racist footnote in one of his essays. His defenders argue that although his racism was deplorable, it was also all too understandable for a man of his time. Crucially, bigotry is not an inherent feature of his philosophy, but rather something incompatible with it. He even said prejudice is destructive of sound judgment and perverts all operations of the intellectual faculties. Hume prioritized evidence and experience, and so it is inconceivable that he would have maintained his seeming support for scientific racism once it was clear that it was in fact totally unscientific. Hume is not an unsullied hero. I believe that Hume remains a great philosopher, in part because he speaks to our human imperfections. To a philosopher and historian, the madness and imbecility and wickedness of mankind ought to appear ordinary events, he wrote. He can still teach us a lot about how to live and to think, provided that we are prepared to learn as much from his mistakes as from what he got right. And one of the key lessons is to be tolerant of human weakness and not to expect even the greatest of us to be flawless.